Well, the New York Times just confirmed that Biden used an autopen for many, if not most, of his pardons, including one for Anthony Fauci. This now has Rand Paul announcing he will re-refer Fauci to the DOJ for lying under oath. And if you recall, this is what Anthony Fauci lied about.
The NIH and NIAID did not fund gain-of-function research to be conducted at the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Okay, so he said there was no money, and it turns out there was money, and it turns out he actually did know about the money. And so Rand Paul has been trying to go after Anthony Fauci, getting him to be held accountable for perjuring himself, lying to Congress. And he's been unsuccessful because Joe Biden decided to sign a pardon for Anthony Fauci. This is the story from the New York Times. The New York Times says here, let me just pull this up. Sorry about that. Okay, New York Times says, as of January 19th meeting, which took place in the Yellow Oval Room at the White House residence, Mr. Biden kept his aides until nearly 10 p.m. to talk through such decisions, according to people familiar with the matter. Then it goes on to say, Mr. Zients hit reply all. So there's a bunch of different aides who were involved in this. And Mr. Zients, who is one of his aides, hit reply all and wrote, I approve the use of the autopen for the execution of all of the following pardons. And one of those pardons was for Anthony Fauci. So the big question, and then Rand Paul, let me just throw this up here. Then Rand Paul now says, now that this has come out, he actually retweeted Libs of TikTok saying, holy schlit, New York Times confirms Fauci's pardon was signed by autopen at the direction of an assistant. Rand Paul says, today I will reissue my criminal referral of Anthony Fauci to the Trump DOJ. So the big question then is, can a president legally use an autopen, which is a robot that they program to write a signature that looks identical to the president's signature? So can a president legally use a robot to sign pardons? That's the big question. Clearly, Rand Paul thinks that there must be something unconstitutional about it, which is why he's saying, well, in this case, I'm going to be re-referring criminal referral of Anthony Fauci to the DOJ. And you also have Donald Trump. He also says those pardons were void. He's calling them invalid. But the question is that true? Well, let's just put aside our desire for Fauci to face consequences and look at the facts. The Constitution gives the president, whether we like it or not, the power to issue pardons. I personally think that this is an antiquated relic from the times of kings and queens, and it turns the president for a moment into a king, and I don't think we should be doing this at all. I think we have to, if we're going to be a law-abiding democracy, then we need to follow the law, and that includes if somebody's convicted of a crime, they're convicted of a crime. That's Article 2, Section 2, that the Constitution gives the president the power to issue pardons. But it says nothing, and I mean literally nothing, about how that power must be executed. There's no requirement for a signature, let alone a handwritten one. And for nearly a century, legal scholars and government lawyers have said that a president can delegate the act of signing as long as he's the one making the decision. A 1929 memo from the Solicitor General's office said exactly that. A facsimile signature is fine, so as long as it's authorized. A 2005 opinion from the Department of Justice under George W. Bush said the same thing. The president can direct someone or something to sign a document on his behalf, and that includes an autopen. And guess what? Presidents from both parties have done it. Obama used it. Even Trump used it, and nobody screamed about constitutional crisis back then. But now there is a legal debate about whether using an autopen to sign bills into law violates Article 1 because, and this is different than pardons, because the legislative process is much more formal. But pardons, that's executive clemency, totally different category. It's a power the Constitution gives the president directly. And in Biden's case, he claimed he personally made the decisions. He doesn't remember, but it doesn't matter. He's going to get up there and claim, that was me. I totally made those decisions. So according to him, the machine just filled in the paperwork. And again, you don't even need a signature for clemency. So, is this illegal? Unfortunately, no, at least not under current law. But should it be? That's a question. Congress has introduced a bill earlier this year to ban autopen use for pardons going forward. And that in and of itself tells you something. If they're trying to ban it, if Congress is trying to ban it, that means it is still, in fact, perfectly legal. So the real issue is if a president doesn't even have to lift a pen to free a criminal or to wipe away his sentence or to grant clemency to his friends, how much power are we actually giving to these people, and what happens when they stop even pretending to be involved? And they're like, well, I'll just give my aides, go ahead and figure out who you want to pardon and just go ahead and do it. That is a question nobody in Washington seems to want to answer. Why are the aides making these decisions? But obviously they should. And the question of whether or not clemency or pardon should even be allowed by the executive branch, again, that's another question nobody in Washington wants to ask, because they don't want the obvious answer, which is we are no longer a monarchy, we're not ruled by kings, and presidents should have to follow and obey the rule of law. And that includes when somebody gets convicted, you follow the courts. You don't get to just give them clemency or pardons. So I would love to see Anthony Fauci held accountable for his crimes. I am not a fan of the pardon at all. So I personally think absolutely Anthony Fauci should be dragged by the DOJ and looked into and investigated, and all of the people who lied should be totally and completely investigated for that. But so as long as we have these pardons, which to me is the real question, why we even have them, and the real question is not the use of the autopen, but the actual use of the pardon in general. And so as long as we have these pardons, and so as long as clemency is allowed to be given with no signature even required, let alone one by an autopen, it just seems like we're still just not really going to be getting anywhere with this. If you're still tossing and turning all night and feeling edgy during the day, then let me tell you about CBD from CB Distillery. Millions are turning to their CBD for relief because it works. In fact, over 90% of customers report better sleep with CBD, and it's not just sleep. CB Distillery offers targeted formulations for just about everything: sleep, stress, mood and focus, pain after exercise. They even have CBD for pets. And it's all made with the highest quality, clean ingredients, no fillers, just premium CBD. I really like their relaxation gummies. I love that I know there's nothing in them except high quality ingredients, and the products really do work. The one that I like is what you're seeing there on the screen called They do have over 2 million satisfied customers and a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're struggling with sleep, stress, or other health concerns and haven't found relief, then make the change like millions are to CBD from CB Distillery. And for a limited time, you can save 25% off your entire purchase. Just visit CB Distillery and use promo code Kim. That's cbdistillery.com, promo code Kim, cbdistillery.com. Specific product availability depends on individual state regulations. Hey guys, thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen Show, which you could check out Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. See you there.